Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Three Person Circle, where we take three people and we sit them in a circle. It's your host, Derek, with my co-host, Dax.
Hey, we haven't done this in a while, actually. We took a big hiatus, so apologize for that. What have you been up to?
Oh, God. Honestly, it's been a lot. I was away at a bachelor party, which was awesome, but because of that, the fallout has been, a week of just taking care of a baby because I was gone for 4 days. So it was all good stuff, but it was just busy times. How about yourself?
Last weekend, coincidentally, Sarah and I were in Seattle. I'm pretty sure you're in Washington too, right?
Yes, sir.
Nice.
Sure was.
We have our guest here today, Daniel. Daniel, say hello.
Hello, everyone. Pleasure to be here.
So how are you doing, Daniel? Tell us about yourself a little.
Yeah, not too bad. A little tired. Had a nice long bike ride today.
Nice.
Yeah, I guess a little about myself. I like to bike and grew up in North Van just like you lads, so I've been tuning into your podcast, been really enjoying it, so it's a real honor to be here, to be honest.
Well, thank you. Thank you for
So
being
funny
here.
enough, so I always introduce Daniel as my cousin,
Yeah.
but actually explain our relationship, in terms of, because we're not actually blood family.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we're not at all. Not at
I would
all.
never have known that. Okay.
Yeah, no, so basically I've known Dax my whole life. And
Right.
so it's one of those friendships where you grew up together and it's kind of beyond this is my good friend or my best friend.
Okay, that's
You're
awesome.
not blood related, but you feel like family.
Absolutely.
So cousin's the closest thing. Cause
Yeah.
it's not too close, but close enough to be like family.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, that's sweet. I didn't know that. That's so cool. So you're a big basketball player, or you were a big basketball player.
Yeah, I enjoy it. I currently play at the Urban Rec League.
Oh, you're still playing?
Yeah,
Oh,
I
hell
play in
yeah.
a
Love to
co-ed
hear
league
that.
with
Love to hear that.
a few buddies of mine. I think 3 of us actually played in high school together. All our girls played collegiate level, and then the
Oh,
rest of the
damn.
dudes are hockey and soccer guys. So
Wicked.
it's a bit of a gong show.
That's
but
wicked,
yeah.
though. Yeah, I'm a big fan of. So I still play a ton of soccer. Soccer's been my main thing, and I'm a big fan of people that go on to continue playing the sports they love. Because I found a lot of people. No disrespect to them, you obviously do your own path, but I found a lot of people were athletes, and they were I would say they were better athletes than me, or better soccer players and stuff like that. But as soon as school ends, they're just yeah, it's over and I'm done. And I'm like, wait, what? I thought you liked sports. And it turns out, I guess maybe they didn't, or they just did it because they did. So that's awesome. I'm glad to hear you're still playing.
Yeah, it's interesting because one of the guys on our basketball team kind of had a similar mentality of what you just mentioned, and I think the reason why he best 3-point shooter I've ever met, still plays, still shoots, Mitch Wetney.
Oh, really?
But he quit basketball for 4 years after high school because the coach made it miserable. That was why he stopped playing. So there's perhaps some trauma. You have your parents who are trying to live vicariously through you.
Yeah.
So there's always
Yeah, no, I always think that's so sad because I've always had the attitude, I always was I'm going to be a pro soccer player. I never was, and I always kind of in the back of my head knew that, but it was just this idea of I love doing it.
Yeah.
And I always found I get, like you said, if you had the trauma of maybe you had a bad coach or something like that, so forced you out, I can respect that. But at the same time, sports is the best. And so I'm always just come on.
I think it was on your previous podcast you mentioned you were playing in a Surrey league or just this. I don't know. I don't know who it was, but I think it was a father who was just incredibly or maybe you were playing in the league perhaps.
No, I was in it. But there was this guy after so I play in a North Shore league.
Yeah.
And it's still it's competitive, but it's all within it's for sure a beer league. Whereas then I went and played in this summer league out in Burnaby, and those dudes it's more than just a sport for them kind of thing.
Yeah, no, ball is life.
Yeah.
Those are the worst leagues to play in.
Yeah, dude, this guy after the game. So the game ended, we won in a shootout. It was just whatever, it's summer league. The goalie from the other team is in the ref's face, this close as the ref's just tying his shoes and he's like, there's children watching this. How are you supposed to be an example for them, blah, blah, all this stuff. And I'm literally looking around. I'm there's actually no one else here. I don't know why you're yelling at the ref still.
It's often just, Dax and I had a conversation about this the other day of how a lot of the tension or those examples of people blowing up in sports is kind of a reflection of what life kind of looks like for them. And this is honestly right. And so they come to this game and you're putting everything on the line.
Yeah.
Whatever is built up at home or whatnot, like it's on the field.
You know what though? Some people are just like wired to be very intense anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't know whether it's because they were good before or they're still really good. Some people just don't have that off switch.
Yeah.
Because there are certain things like I don't have an off switch for.
Yeah.
So I think I told you last week when we were talking, I stay pretty much level most of the time now, because if I don't, when I'm in a competitive setting,
Yeah.
it's an ugly side of me that I don't really like.
That's fair.
But even from an athletic perspective, I think, again, just let me interject a little bit here, but
Yeah.
he's selling himself short a little bit. He's literally like one of the most athletic people I know. He picked up rugby in your last year of high school and excelled. Like really, I'm pretty sure he got a scholarship offer for rugby.
Offered. Yeah. It's
Wow.
for
In
UBC.
1 year of
For
rugby.
UBC.
Yeah.
It's one thing to like go to some university, but UBC is...
Dude, it's anything.
that's
We
big
play
leagues.
multi-sport or pentasport, and almost every sport we play, you can throw him out there, and he's like noticeably like
So
the
it's
star.
basketball's your favorite, or what's your favorite?
I'd say basketball. I gravitate to basketball just because we've always had the skills, right? Dax and I grew up playing. This was one of the prime examples of why I got into it, and so it's just something that kind of brings people together. A lot of my friends play it, so it's one of those team games that people actually play.
Yeah,
And
that's
then-
a big part of it always, isn't it?
exactly.
Yeah.
Tell him what you do right now, though. Like, what are you actually into right now?
What am I into?
Athletic
Athletically.
perspective.
Yeah, right now I'm really into cycling, and
Okay, right on.
I've been getting into a lot of running.
Yeah, I know
Yeah,
you two have been
yeah.
going hard at that.
So-
I love cycling. My bike's been broken for a year. I had the derailleur broke, and
Oh,
I've just
no.
been like, I'm so lazy. I'm like, I'm not gonna go get it fixed, but secretly, so I don't have to bike. But everyone's like, they're like, yo, just get it fixed. It's like $30. I'm like, who's got $30? And it like falls out of my pocket.
It's a commitment, man, because nowadays, especially living in the North Shore, bringing it to a bike shop, it could take anywhere from like a full day to depending on which shop.
Absolutely, it actually is true. Like I went into the shop and it was the midst of summer. To be fair, it
Yeah.
wasn't like dead
Yeah, it's the
season.
worst time.
And the guy was like, "Yo, can you help me out?" He's just like, "I'm like, that's a terrible answer. It does answer the question, but it's a terrible answer."
Well, he's got a road bike ready for me now for almost 8 months, and all I have to do is pick it up from his place. And I keep telling him I have every intention to pick it up, because we have a plan basically to do a triathlon
Amazing,
at some point.
amazing.
Yeah.
But he's also factored that idea of if you pick it up, you have to get it serviced. Because remember that last time we raced on that bike?
yeah.
He took that bike in and was like, you should not be biking on this thing.
It was-
And we bombed down Mountain Highway on that.
Oh
thing.
yeah.
Yeah, like full on.
Yeah.
But so I've been waiting to pick it up, but I've also been trying to time it on a day when I can take it into the shop and just like leave it there.
So with your biking, do you bike around, or like I have a sense that you more than just go for a casual bike to like Kits Beach?
That's only if you're with the boys, you know.
Yeah.
So, for example, this morning, a buddy of mine, he had to come back. He was actually going. It's called the Tour Divide.
Okay.
21-year-old lad, Irish dude. It's where you bike from Banff to Mexico. Yeah, and so in September he had biked. Yeah, he had biked from just this past September. He had biked from here to Mexico. And he was doing it again this summer.
So wait, so like the difference is he's now going Banff to Mexico
Yeah, it's
as
harder.
opposed to the shorter here to Mexico.
It's more so gravel, so
Oh
a lot
my
more like
God.
terrain.
And would you do something
incline.
like that, or you have?
He tried to get me to go the first time, and my fiance was like, "You're not leaving me for like a month or two. It's too dangerous because
Yeah.
you're just bike packing, right? He's sleeping on the side of the road, like you're trying to find campgrounds, but
That's
yeah.
I didn't even know that was a thing. I'm not surprised to hear that.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
People are
listen,
wild.
he didn't finish it
Yeah.
from there. Like he did
Yeah.
that trip, and then he did another one right after, didn't
Yeah. So he had made it to Mexico, and then he flew back, and then flew with his bike with his father, and biked Chile to Patagonia. Yeah,
That's
like the next week.
okay. So this is always a thing that I have like mixed feelings about. to me, very personally, that idea of that huge bike ride, I was like, you're going to get stabbed, murdered, and jacked up. And I don't even mean on the like just like oh in Mexico. I'm like no, like just at any point along the way. But then people consistently do stuff like that always proves the opposite is true,
Yeah.
right? But it's such a weird, like, I know that. I'm not stupid. I'm like, but in the back of my heart, I'm like, but you will get jacked up. Like, you know, like, why is that a thing?
Well, like I think it's probably the exposure we have with like media, right?
Mm-hmm.
All you ever hear about Mexico is the bad. And
Absolutely.
how drug-ridden it is. And then, have you been to Mexico before?
I've been many times, but always to all inclusive.
Yeah.
So you
And-
haven't been a real.
Yeah,
Real
and
Mexico.
and I know real Mexico, like the amount of people I know that are like, dude, you're going to the all inclusives, you got to go to the real Mexico.
And it's at the bottom of your kind of low key. You're kind of, I don't really want to
Yeah.
leave the all inclusive. No, I feel that. I think similar to Philippines. Like if you go to Philippines, a lot of people will be like, make sure you keep your phones in your pocket, like no jewelry, don't show anything. But then you get there, man, and it's perhaps some spots, of course, don't want to have that type of stuff. But like for the most part, like I don't know, the general population of most countries, I'd say.
But it's with
I
anything
believe
though.
that. I
Exactly.
believe that always,
There's always
yeah.
pockets of places
For
that
sure.
are going to be bad. For
Yeah.
example, I mean, I'm sure you wouldn't want to walk through the south side of Chicago
No.
and not know anybody,
Yeah.
right? And be willingly dumb. But you could say that about literally anywhere.
Yeah.
Like, you could walk through bad parts of the Philippines where,
Yeah.
hey, maybe you shouldn't be doing that on your own.
Mhm.
But I think to an extent, there's also a respectfulness when you enter some of those
Mm,
areas.
For sure.
But not everywhere is super bad. Again, maybe that's me also talking in more of a like naivete, you know?
Mm.
I have mixed feelings on that because like I was in Bolivia and we were in the worst part of Bolivia at the La Paz, the like capital city's train station. Supposedly that's the worst crime in all of Bolivia.
Mm.
So you're like, okay, and I'm walking around and I definitely had some people scope me out, but
Right.
like even within that, it wasn't like it was sketchy. But it wasn't as sketchy as you would think it'd be. You could just see you're like, oh, there's something, and maybe I was profiling them, but they looked like the kind
Right.
of dudes that were kind of like looking around. Anyhow, you do your thing, you go, you're fine,
Yeah.
and like very easily that could have gone wrong. But like I think you make the argument most of the time it doesn't go wrong.
For sure.
But unfortunately, the second you're like nothing will go wrong, something's gonna go
Yeah.
wrong. Like it's a weird like,
Yeah.
yeah. So okay, so. I have a I think the real reason we brought you on here is you are becoming a pastor, correct?
It seems like that on the road to that.
Yeah. So, Dax was telling me you've got quite a story to this. You weren't just like grew up and like I'm going to be a pastor from day one.
Definitely not.
So, do you want to maybe get into who you were and then how you're going into pastor? Or do you just prefer going from like I've decided to do this going forward?
Yeah, man, I'm full open book
Full
here.
open.
Yeah.
Okay, so like, why don't we go from who you were to becoming a pastor, and we'll just kind of flow from there.
Yeah, just ask away whenever you want. Just
Yeah.
interject. But you want to say something?
Yeah. So before he gets into this, how
Cheers.
our families met was actually through the church. So
Okay.
we've known each other basically for over 20 years now. And his family and my family are close family friends. His parents and my parents are leaders in the church that we grew up in.
Oh, I didn't know that your parents were leaders.
Yeah,
Okay,
and so
cool.
that's how I met Daniel. So Daniel and I's relationship, at the start it was more big brother, little brother, because he was like 5 or 6. Like the first time he met my brother, he bit him in the back and gave him like a dent in his
Yeah.
back, right? He was like a little kid.
Terrible kid.
I love that's the first
He's
memory.
not
Yeah.
joking. He's not
Yo,
joking.
what
I'm
up?
not joking. And but then as he got older into high school, and by the time he rolled into high school, we were going into university,
Okay.
and that's really when we started hanging out. And I will preface all of this before he gets into this. I was definitely not the best role model for a lot of this. Picture like all the stuff we were getting into in university, like late high school, early university,
Yeah.
and imagine that being unfiltered and told to like a 13-year-old in grade 8, right?
All
Like,
right. I can't,
going into high school.
can't
So
wait to see where this
again,
goes.
I'm gonna openly admit like the where our relationship dynamic changed pretty rapidly and varied like growing up.
Okay.
And then we're kind of where we're at now, and I'll obviously let him get into it because his story is why we're here, right?
Absolutely. All right.
Yeah, man. So, yeah, it's kind of what Dax was saying. Grew up in the church. It's just kind of a cultural, ethnic thing expectation, especially Filipino, who are predominantly relatively religious back in the Philippines, right? And so coming over here, parents started going to church, and so the expectation was you're coming every Sunday, right? Sometimes we'll go to the prayer meetings, Bible studies. You remember those? Like during the week, and we just hang around, play WWE, like
hell yeah,
just to hang out, right?
Hell yeah.
And but because of that, it was there was no choice, right? This isn't my choice. This isn't my faith. There was no ownership to it. It was more so a duty I had to fulfill to appease my parents, right? And so growing up, that's how it went. And really the only reason why we went to church was so we didn't have mom and dad like haggling us, why didn't you go to church, or even getting kicked out of the house, right? That's
how intense church was.
Yeah, just to have like your son like kind of decide to turn away from that is, to them at the time, would have been like, okay, like we're losing him, like something's up, right? And so no one ever wants to be in that position, and who has ever been forced to do something and like actually loves it?
Yeah,
right? So,
very few,
right?
Yeah.
And so that was mostly like my childhood, just growing up in the church, and then as probably like grade 7 and going into high school hit, you're exposed to a lot more things, right? So I think I had gotten into, I think first time I ever smoked weed was in grade 8.
What?
Yeah, like.
Okay, I know this is going to be crazy for a lot of people because like I'm sure a lot of people have that experience. I genuinely don't think I saw weed until I was in grade 12 or something like that.
So it was around.
Yeah.
Right? And nowadays you see it and it's like I couldn't imagine being where I was at before and now because of how accessible it was, right? You had to jump through hoops back in the day, right?
You had to know someone.
You had to know someone who
knew
someone.
Sketchy,
it
like,
was sketchy. You
call someone.
call someone.
Think
I
about
didn't
it.
have money, you know what I mean? Like you didn't. I'm going to people's houses who I don't know, and they're all looking at me. There's this little kid who looks like he's 12. Like
there's a comedy routine in there. Think about how much trust we had as children, or people had trust pre-2018. How many people in Canada as a whole had trust to go into other people's cars, other people's homes, text numbers that they didn't know, that they just trusted, like, look, hey, text this guy. Yeah. Like, what if it was a cop on the other side? Like,
that's
you know
so
what I
true.
mean?
Dude, my weed dealer was this dude that he'd show up in this white Beamer, and he was like a little kid too, basically, and he was like, we're like, yo, is this your car? He's like, no, it's my mom's. Like, everyone knew, like, yeah, that's so trippy that it's
such a different world.
Different thing, yeah.
So, but yeah, so got exposed to that early, and then by high school it was almost just best way I can put it is living two lives. Okay. It's like the masks we wear, and I had a lot of masks. Mm-hmm. One was the good Christian kid growing up at home, never did anything bad. I missed like one day of school in all my grade 8 to 12 just so I didn't get yelled at, or if I skipped I'd be done for. Right. But then on the other side, on the weekends, like you're just doing whatever you want, right? You're experimenting. It's high school.
Yes, you do.
Thankfully, honestly, thinking about it now, sports played a big factor of me like not getting into like a deep spiral of that, because there was that expectation of like during the week you're gonna be working hard. So if you mess around now, you're gonna feel it at practice.
Yeah, that was a big thing for me. Like. Yeah. Even drinking, I did drink in high school, but all of it, I just was like, I wasn't interested because I wanted to be good at sports. Yeah.
And so, even to that point, like I hated alcohol. So I was the Bellini's cooler guy, growers 2 liter. Dak sometimes would make runs for us when we were growing up.
This is what
like he was the plug.
He crushed it like when they were like 13, 14, right?
Plug.
I was going into 19, 20 years old, right? And definitely at the time, my mindset behind it, because I think by the time you hit high school age, I had just fully accepted that like Christianity wasn't for me, right? So I'll tie this all in together because this is Daniel's. It's not about me. Mm-hmm. But I had basically, by the time they got into a stage where they were like, hey Dax, like, can you get us this? I was more like, oh yeah, let's do it. And sometimes I would even like hang out with them.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I mean, just sorry, we do want you to be like, if you're part of this.
No. This is. I just want to jump in like where it's relevant.
Yeah, right? No, I know, but yeah. Sorry.
Yeah. Appreciate that, man. So fast forward, we get into grade 12, and final year, I have no idea what I'm doing after high school, right?
Yeah.
At that point, it was just playing sports, hanging out with girls, and having fun on the weekends.
Oh, so you were literally me.
Yeah. No, trust me. I was. Yeah, for sure. And so, in that year, I had gotten just stupid guy things where you just don't take women seriously and you objectify them, right? And so, got into a interesting relationship out the gates of high school, and ended pretty badly. Maybe 4 months after graduation, and at that point, because there was no foundation of who I was, or my identity was still being formed, it crushed me. And from there, it was a downward spiral of like, all right, well, I believe in God, but I don't really practice these things. I've been told these things, but I have never experienced them for myself. Therefore, let's just take whatever we can do to numb this pain.
Right.
So for a good year and a half, 2 years, it was just Bender. So I was going to CapU at the time, try to do business, try to do like marine biology. Once that hit, I was just abusing marijuana. And so because of that, I had dropped out of CapU. In that April, I think it was 2014, I moved into my best friend's living room floor in Victoria.
Oh my goodness.
There we go.
Yeah.
So I was part of this.
Yeah.
So I drove him.
Yeah.
I packed his bags into my van. Yeah. We made a trip. This is where, again, at the time, I had just graduated from university, and I was heavy into finding a career in post-party and like kind of a tail end of university party mode.
Right.
I only really dabbled in I dabbled, but for the most part, heavy alcohol and a lot of weed, right? But we took him, obviously, to a friend's place in Victoria, and that opened up like a world. Because even that weekend we stayed there, the stuff we got into, that was just like literally you would walk into a room and there would just be stuff on the table. And it was like a weekend of like complete and honest like debauchery, and we left him there for a year.
Yeah, it was like 5 months, but in that 5 months, like the initial plan was to go over there because the guy I moved in with was a serial entrepreneur. He was like my best friend at the time, brilliant mind, but he wanted to start like I think it was a student marketing business where we like went to, because he was going to UVic, and so we would recruit students to like market for us because he was really good at marketing.
That's so crazy.
Yeah, and so that was the plan.
He's pretty successful, right?
Yeah, he's doing pretty well right now.
Yeah.
We can get into that after, but yeah, Dax had given me a ride because who else am I going to ask? And Dax was around. He would finish university, and so yeah, as you mentioned, he kind of got a glimpse of what the next like 5 months looked like for me.
Right.
And it didn't help that. So this guy, he was he struggled with a lot of mental health stuff. So he had a plethora of access to prescription drugs.
And give us like a rundown. I don't think I've ever actually talked to you about.
I don't know
what was available.
Like anything for depression, bipolar, anxiety, like all that spectrum, we had.
I always think pills out of everything is the most dangerous. Well, I shouldn't say the most dangerous. Like I think heroin and all that is obviously is, but like the sneaky thing is like if you're doing any drug, like if you're sniffing something, if you're smoking, if you're injecting it, if there's this very obvious like you feel or like you have this like mode of access where you feel it or you see it or like you know.
Yeah.
Pills, you swallow them and then you almost in essence forget that you've taken them, and then very slowly the slow drip comes in, but it's just as potent as doing all those other ones.
Sure.
And so that's what's so dangerous about it, as opposed to, and again, I'm not saying that drugs aren't dangerous across the board, period. It's just those ones, like there seems to be this thing, and then also the prescription of them in doctors. So if a doctor gives you something, you're instantly like, oh, well, the doctor would never do me wrong. And again, I don't think the doctor's trying to do you wrong, obviously. It's just that all that plays into the ability for you to low-key just be like, wow, I've just become addicted to something.
Yeah. And the wild thing, to speak on that point, turns out later on, we found out that he got misdiagnosed with bipolar.
Oh my goodness.
So we're getting prescription drugs for a guy who the doctors think have bipolar, and that's what we're taking. And I don't know half of the names, but there would be nights where like countless, and you'd wake up the next morning somewhere like, what happened?
Like what was like
Like,
what is a night like? What was like a wild night for you?
Like,
What would that look like? Like you don't have to go specifically.
Yeah,
like, what you
no,
took.
it would be like, I can remember probably off the top of my head, like one night, I don't know what we took, but it must have been 8 or 10 in one go.
Okay.
Pills.
Yeah.
And then we had gone out for a birthday, and then we drank, and I woke up the next morning, and I had no idea what happened the night before. Yeah.
That's so crazy to me because my body, if I drink too much, I don't black out and walk around. I'm just like a heap on the floor.
Yeah.
So I never really have got that like, I blacked out and then I woke up the next morning and didn't know where I was. I'm like, but you were on the floor. It's like,
Yeah.
no, I did a whole night.
Yeah. So it's you get flashes. So yeah, and that was just like the prescription side, right? And this guy he came from money, and so there was like a lot of like other drugs that I definitely couldn't have afforded myself, that were just available.
That is a
It's
very,
the same.
very, this area, I guess, like even out at UVic, is just people are extremely, like you will run into so many exceptionally wealthy people
Yeah.
and you won't even know it. And then all of a sudden they're like buying all the drugs and all the drinks and everything.
Well,
You're
I'll
just
put it
like,
this way: we went to pick him up 5 months later, and we showed up again. Instead of me just coming and like picking him up, we made a weekend of it. So I brought a whole crew of people, like
You know most of
literally.
them.
You know
Yeah.
pretty much all of them.
Yeah, I'm already in my head. I'm like, I know
Yeah.
exactly who it is.
We brought a crew of people, and this guy celebrated. Did he get us like a bottle of like
Ace.
of Ace?
Yeah.
He had like bottled Dom Perignon,
Yeah.
right?
Jesus.
And then in the living room was a mountain of what you can guess is probably like the most accessible drug for rich people. That was just there all weekend. And I remember at one point he was on his phone and he was like, "Oh, I can't hear the sound on this." Throws it out the window, opens the drawer, and like pulls out a new cell phone. And I'm like, I would have just taken that cell phone.
Wait, so why was he that rich?
I think his family came from royalty back in his home country.
Yeah.
The thing that I can't get over is like that exists because there's a lot of extremely rich people you'll meet and you'll be like, oh, they're rich, but their whole thing is based on like they're really good at saving and they had a successful business, or
Yeah.
they even had some really good idea. But even then, you're not being like, my goddamn phone, breaking it and pulling a new one out of the thing. It's so crazy.
Well, you know Ace, the champagne, right?
I've never even heard of it.
Just imagine Dom times what?
I
It's
don't
just
know.
a lot more expensive.
It all tasted very.
It all
expensive
tastes the
to me.
same,
Yeah.
but it's like a five. I don't. Correct me if I'm wrong. Whoever's listening to this, but it's got to be like $500 to like $1,000 bottle of
See,
champagne.
It was funny. I'm like, why'd you get this? And he was like, oh, it's because you guys are visiting.
Yeah.
I'm like, what?
But we drank it. We played beer pong with it.
Yeah. I can't believe you remember that. That's so crazy.
Okay, so I think one of my favorite jokes, people never laugh at this, but I think it's hilarious. So I didn't realize I was poor until we went to our friend Zach Robertson, his in-laws. They're like mega wealthy,
Okay.
oil money,
Oh.
and they have hardwood floors.
Yeah.
And none of us could walk on it after a day. Like, I'm not joking. Like, I had to go from like chair to chair because my feet and my low back were so sore. and I was like, yo, and everyone was like, what's going on? And they're like, oh, the hardwood floors are really hard. And I was like, yeah, but like I've walked on hardwood floors before. They were just
Not
like,
real.
no, you haven't.
It's true. Whenever I clean at the house, we're using Windex to like clean the wood, the fake wood. But
No, anyway, let's get back on track.
Yeah,
So, Daniel, so just to get back to where we were,
Mhm.
obviously you were at the point where you were in Victoria getting up to some crazy
Yeah.
stuff.
yeah.
And then, yeah, take us from there. I came and picked
For
you
sure.
up, right?
Yeah, so kind of just to, if you were to describe that holistic experience, or at this point in my life, it was probably one of like the lowest points in my life, right? And so 5 months go by, I didn't work, so I'm broke. But the reason why I wanted to come back was there was this like pull, or this itch in me which was kind of like, I need to go home and reconcile with my parents, and I need to be a big brother to my brother. That is like the reason why I wanted to come home, and probably because I was broke too. But Majority, that was the
No
thing.
comment.
Yeah. So Dax comes and picks me up, and I'm starting to pour into those relationships a little more, and through like the months moving forward, there were just kind of these pockets of like moments, like key moments in my life where it was just like, if I wasn't here, I don't know what would happen, right? And so fast forward, so I had moved back in April. Dax had picked me up. Fast forward to in January, I decided to take a trip to the Philippines and Japan to find myself. Because I had gone home, I had built my relationship back up with my family, but I was still lost. I didn't know what I was doing. It was just, I think I was working at Napa Auto Parts at the time, just to work with Pat DeLeon.
Yeah, there's a whole crew of them.
Shout out Pat DeLeon.
Yeah, shout out, man. I miss you. I hope you enjoy tennis. But yeah, I bought my ticket to the Philippines and got on a flight. I started in Japan. Still managed to find drugs in Japan somehow.
Japan,
Yeah,
really?
because
Wow.
my aunt lives over there, and we're still kind of messing around. And that was for about 2 weeks, and I went to the Philippines, and we're still dabbling in all that stuff, like whatever that may be that I was doing here.
That's crazy because the Philippines, when you went back, was still like peak Duterte territory.
I think it was before, like right before.
Oh, really? Okay.
If it had been, I don't know if we would have done it.
Okay.
Because you'd go to jail. You'd
Wouldn't you
get
be killed? Yeah. Which
Yeah.
is so crazy.
It's crazy, right?
Yeah.
But I think one of the turning points was in the Philippines. We were at a beautiful, gorgeous beach with my cousins, and I had a near-death experience.
Oh.
Yeah. We were at this beach, which we hadn't known at the time, but it was known for strong winds. And every year, there's a statistic, apparently, that like 3 to 5 deaths happen there because of the strong winds.
What?
And so...
How strong's the wind?
Yeah, it's crazy. So we had gone out into the water. It was one of those pedal boats with your feet, right?
Yeah.
So it was me and 2 of my cousins, a girl and a guy. First things first, we didn't wear life jackets. So we go out, and you have to go far because the ocean floor is really shallow until you get like really, really far.
Oh, you're like walking ankle deep or whatever.
Picture like the continental shelf, those ones that go like this.
Yeah,
and then all
and
of a
then
sudden it
just-
goes like that.
Yeah.
Like,
Oh,
there's no,
what?
yeah,
A little gradual, but then like
it
just
just
further.
drops
Yeah.
off. Yeah.
So we went out, and so to best picture it, so our cousins, it's hard to describe this on podcast, but
Yeah.
beach in the front, cousins here, go out, but the wind pushes us.
Okay.
But perpendicular to the beach are like a bunch of bungalows that stretch out to the water. So if you go past that point, no one can see you.
Oh shit. Okay. Yeah.
So we're past that point because of the wind. Turns out our cousin can't swim, and we're what do you call it? We're snorkeling. So me and my other cousin who can swim, we take our turns, and we're like, all right. Shout to our little cousin, like, come in, it's your turn. She goes in, and so it's her and I in the water, and she didn't put the goggles on for some reason. I don't know why, but then she casually says to me like, "Hey, Kuya Daniel, like I can't swim." And so at this point, like fight or flight starts, and obviously in hindsight, the worst thing to do is freak out in this moment. But I'm young, so we're freaking out.
How old were you back then?
20 or 21.
But good luck. Like it's not a chill situation.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Like, yeah. Holy.
Right? And so she tells me this, and I'm like, put the mask on. Like, it'll act like almost as like a flotation device with your lungs. And I'm screaming at my cousin, but I turn to the left, and the wind has already pushed him about, like, I don't know, maybe to the other apartment.
Yeah.
Like, just over here, maybe 20 feet or more. So he's far. And so my instinct was to grab her, and what did I do? Oh, I put my arm around her, and I start paddling with my left hand. Minute goes by, exhausted. Scream, Aaron, your turn. He jumps in, I swim over to the boat. He's doing the same thing, but he's pushing from underneath. Minute goes by, he's done. At this point, he's screaming my name like, you gotta get in here in Tagalog. And I'm just kind of surveying the situation like, this is about to happen. Like, I'm about to watch my cousins die. So nut up, jump in, go back to my cousin. While he's boating, and the boat's going further and further, right?
Yeah, it's not just chilling. It's like it's got its own
because the
battle.
wind is so fast, right? And he's trying to turn it around. I get to my cousin, and I do the same thing. 30 seconds go by, my body shuts down. Like I have nothing left. So as soon as that point hit, I kind of like released, and I kind of like floated away from her, and I'm just sitting in the ocean. And by this point, the boat is at the end of the street, so almost a block away. Right? It's far.
Yeah.
And so I'm just floating there, just like beautiful ocean sky, but it's salt water, so you're just getting battered by the salt. And I was kind of like, all right. I look at the sky. I'm like, all right, God. Like, I guess it's my time. Like, I can't do anything. Like, take me. Right? It was just that utter defeat. So I kind of floated there for a few seconds, and then something in me was just like, okay, why don't we just check? Maybe my cousin's coming. So I prop up, and as I look over, I'm treading, and then I hit something with my foot. And it's one rock that I could fit my foot on. One pillar of rock. Kid you not. And so like I screamed to my cousin, I grab her. I had to swim to her and I grab her, but at that point the wind had changed too. So now it's flowing our direction. Okay, so I grab her and we're like waiting on this rock, and then my cousin, he like 30 seconds later, he gets us, we like heave her on. Dead silence, just complete exhaustion. So we head back to the ocean. We tell our cousins what happened, and from that point on, it was just this repeating question of why me. It was just this conversation opened up between God and I, and it was just like, all right, God, I'm reflecting on the past 2-3 years, or just my life. I've wanted nothing to do with you. You've seen what I've done the past 2 or 3 years. I've battered my body, abused whatever I could. I wanted everything the world had for me, money, drugs, whatever, women. Like, why would you save like a guy like me? Like, I don't deserve to be saved. Right. And just this echo kept repeating, it's like, I'm not done with your life yet, man. Like, I'm not done with you. And so that kind of that's what like sparked this kind of this searching, discovering journey. And so I get home, and I had gone back to church actually, and like one of the key points there was I think a lot of the young adults my age had just come back from a missions trip in Dominican Republic, and so there was a different vibe, a different feel in the church of like, these guys aren't just attending anymore. Like, there's something alive
younger,
in them, you know.
There's something.
Like there's you feel this like fire. But to add on to that, at the front of the church was one of our close friends. Dax grew up with him. He was known for like coming to the church once or twice a year. But that day when I showed up, and he was part of like our escapades of drinking, whatever. Yeah, yes, you know what I'm talking about.
Yes. I was very, very good friends with him.
Very, very close with Dax, right? And him and I did not have a good relationship growing up. Like Dax.
Him and I were like, if I were to remove my friends from STA, he was probably considered my best friend.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do I know who it is by chance?
Probably met him.
I actually don't know. Maybe. Maybe.
Okay.
Yeah, because by the time post high school, I wasn't really hanging out with him.
Yeah.
We kind of went different directions, but not even because of Christianity. He did his own divergent path.
Yeah.
But anyway.
Yeah. So like, even just saying that, like his own divergent path, right? That was one of my frame of references. It was Dax or him. And I saw him, and it was just like, you never knew when he was coming to church, like just did whatever he wanted, wild child. And the last person you'd ever expect to like take this seriously. But that day when I just come back from the Philippines, I got to church. You see the young adults, but I see him at the front, both hands up, full surrender, weeping. What? And I'm just like, okay, God, if you can change his heart, there's something in this, and I
Right.
want to discover it.
Right.
And so that kind of propelled this this lifelong journey of just discovering of what it means to.
So okay, then I have some like first off, that's actually an amazing story. Like that's such a cool story. So with becoming a pastor, like what does that exactly entail in terms of like, do you like read a lot of scripture, or you like just what does it mean truly?
So I think the root word for pastor is shepherd.
Okay.
And so you're kind of leading a flock or like a people like towards a certain goal, which is like Jesus.
Right.
Experiencing and knowing Jesus like personally for each person, and you're just there to kind of like guide.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
And so that entails like it's not like your typical vocation where you can kind of go to work 9 to 5, come home, turn off. Like you're kind of on 24/7. So it's a lifestyle.
Yeah, you don't go to the what's it called, the seminary and up in, is it Coquitlam or Coquitlam?
So his only frame of reference for
Is
becoming
Catholic.
is a Catholic.
Because I went to Catholic
Right.
school
So-
my whole life.
Got
So
it.
Right?
priesthood, you have to
Yes.
commit, you have to go.
Yeah, like I know you're not
So
a priest,
I
but
think
like
his-
that's kind of my frame
Right.
of reference.
His question
for it
is
all.
like, so
What's
you did
the
this
process of
Yeah,
going
yeah,
through
you
that?
did
Yeah,
this because
okay.
I'm gonna interject here for a second.
Yeah, yeah,
okay?
yeah.
His transition wasn't super smooth either, because when he got back, there's a ongoing bad influence Dax that is lingering here for a majority of our relationship.
Right.
My frame of reference when he first got into this was, this will pass. Like he got back, he told me the story. You know what we did? We smoked weed about it. I'm not even joking you. Like, and then all of a sudden, like months go by, and he's like starting to say exactly what he said. He's like going to church more, and my thing was like, we got another one. Like, and we didn't really we talked a lot.
Yeah.
Because him and I are like, that's one thing that I will say about this guy, regardless of like how often we saw each other or like what path he went to, we always like stayed in touch.
Yeah.
That's
like
cool.
for like
You
the
never-
last
yeah.
10 years.
Yeah.
We might not have
Nice.
hung out as much.
No, but,
But
if we saw each other, it was like
Honestly, that's how
Picking
you
up.
have to be if you actually like love someone and consider them like family, friend,
Sure.
brother, whatever.
Yeah.
So then how did you go from that to maybe explain like how you decided to want to pursue this, and then how do you even become a pastor?
Yeah, no, that's good. So as Dax said, like it wasn't like an easy route, and a lot of the time it's like an aha moment. I'm coming back, like something happens. That was a big moment, but it was a slow process. And so as I got back from during when this all is happening, I'm like, all right, it's time to hunker down. I need to go to school. What do we want to go to school for? And I love people. I love talking. So this is actually quite enjoyable.
It's
for
fun,
me.
right? Yeah, it's very fun. I'm glad you
But
enjoyed
so
it.
I really wanted to get into social work.
Okay.
So social work was like the plan. And so that September, I had applied to Douglas, started going to Douglas, and I was going heavy on like gaining this volunteer hours to like transfer from there to UBC to do social work. Finish all that up, have it all ready. Day comes, or in between that though, when the finishing Douglas and the application for UBC, I had a conversation with my pastor, and he kind of implanted in me, and he was like, I had told him my plans to go into social work, and he was saying like, hey, like just keep in mind, open hand, open heart, like the pastoral ministry is like just a step, just like one step, or it's kind of like equivalent to social work. You just get to talk about, there's a spiritual dimension to it.
Right.
You're allowed to talk about Jesus. You know,
Right,
you
right,
can't
right.
really do
Yeah,
that.
you can't do that in
right?
social
It's
work.
government.
I'm pretty sure, again, not to be political, but I'm pretty sure you get fired for that.
Yeah, you'd probably get fired for that. No, for sure. And
You
so I
definitely get fired
I
for
recognize
that.
that, right? And so from there, it was kind of planted in me. Get to this application part, and the first question asked, "Why do you want to get into social work?" and I couldn't answer it properly.
I don't know.
And so because I couldn't answer it confidently, I was thinking like, if I were to go through with this, I would be doing a disservice to the people I'm serving if I can't even answer this simple question.
I mean, that's actually very fair. Like,
Yeah.
if you're literally, they're like, why do you want to do the job that you're applying for? And you're
Yeah.
like, I don't know.
Yeah. Right? And social work, you're severely underpaid. You're walking with people through trauma and whatnot. Don't get me wrong, same with pastoral ministry, but like...
But yeah,
it's...
it's, yeah.
You know? And
Yeah.
so, from that point, it's like, all right, maybe we'll take the year, because it's a year application process at UBC for that. Highly competitive. And so I was like, okay, well, I'm not going to do this. What am I going to do? And so I was like, I can't stop schooling now. We're on a roll here. We're already older, right? Like, let's just want to get this done. So I had a bunch of buddies going to Bible college at the time.
Okay.
And so I was like, you know what? Like, I'm starting to take my faith more seriously. Why don't I just take 2 classes? Take 2 classes. Kind of like it here. Next semester, take 4 classes.
So,
okay,
like, what are
it's
the
not
classes?
bad. So it ranges. So it could be like anything from like theology, so the study of God, right? Or
Okay,
like
okay.
if you want to get into what is it?
History.
Like, yeah, there you can go like in biblical history.
See,
There's a
I'm-
guy, a pastor that Dan introduced me to. He is so cool. He's like full on history nerd, not
Yeah.
just Christianity obviously is the focus, but religious
Everything,
history.
yeah.
I'm super into religious history.
Yeah, it's so sick.
It's so crazy because, like, irregardless of what you think of religion, you, the viewer listening, it's literally like the history of everything is all based
That's so
around
good.
religion, which is so crazy.
Have you read Dominion?
Dominion, no.
Yeah.
He's a big book guy.
Dude,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, please,
I'm gonna send it to you because
please.
it essentially tracks how Western society, mostly everything we think today, has some form of like Christian influence.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's one thing that I found so weird coming out of high school was like there was obviously I was aware that we were like brought up
Mm-hmm.
like Catholic in our case, but
Yeah.
like you start talking to people and they're doing all these weird Catholic things. Well, not
Mhm.
weird Catholic, but like these things.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, and then they have literally
idea.
no clue. Like
No.
you're like, what? Like you, I don't know. It's just very interesting.
We talk about this all the time. The major holidays and statutory holidays we celebrate, just as a secular community, it is really funny to me that a lot of the big ones are Christian rooted.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
literally everyone you talk to, unless you're of a different denomination, celebrate Christmas. And I know people will say like, I celebrate Christmas because of this,
Yeah.
right? Because like not anything to do with religion, but
No.
it's funny because like the actual holiday of Christmas is
Well,
literally
Same with
religious.
Easter, right?
Same
Yeah,
with Easter.
yeah,
You just
exactly.
put a little secular twist on it. Throw
Yeah.
out Santa Claus or
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
As soon as you stamp Jesus on it, no one wants a part of that. right?
Yeah,
It's
well,
just the
that-
reality of it.
But isn't that funny?
It's
Just
wild.
that one there, Christmas alone. Everyone's like, well, no, it's because I like the presents. You're like, it doesn't matter what your interpretation of it is.
Mhm.
It's this like deep seated, very old Christian
Yeah,
religion
for sure.
religious thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, personally, myself, I don't. I believe in God. I believe in it more as like I think honestly what religion speaks about. I believe that to be true.
Mm.
I just like I can't verbally express what I believe God to be,
Yeah.
but I do believe in a God of some sort.
Right.
And I find it very interesting the world we live in now. Like I don't know about the rest of the world. I think the rest of the world's different, but
Yeah.
the North America or at least Canada is very like secular, and it's sad to me not because of the like I don't think it's like oh these poor people they're missing out on God. I'm like it's sad because it seems like a lot of people seem lost,
Yeah.
and irregardless if God is real or not, at least the people that believe in a God have something to like put their energy towards as opposed to being like does it really matter because I'm dead and it's over. And it's like okay if that's true sure, but it's like it's all of a sudden it's a very negative spin on every single thing you do.
Because you can use that perspective to justify a lot of things.
Absolutely.
Right? And so it's just that question. I think in general, perhaps there's it's inherent in our nature to cling to something, to make meaning of something. That's what we've been doing. Science, like any sort of study, you want to make meaning of something.
Absolutely.
And we just make meaning out of whatever we want, right? Like,
Yeah.
And because it's whatever we want, it can be tough to hold on to those things.
Oh,
right?
absolutely. Yeah, I don't know. I find it's really interesting as we go forward. Like, so what I'm really interested in is the history of religion.
Yeah.
And I've been listening to a lot of podcasts of classicists, and they're all people that can read ancient Greek.
Yeah.
And it's so interesting hearing them talk about.
Yeah.
They argue about the Bible
Mhm.
and just what was going on in the
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
and it's just so crazy to me because it doesn't seem real. Like you're listening to it and you're like, oh, this is some crazy like made up thing, like not even like God, just the whole thing seems like this crazy book.
Right.
You're like it's like next to the Lord of the Rings, but then everyone's like, no, but this actually happened. And again, irregardless of what you think of God, all the stuff is people acting on what they believe to be God, which is so crazy.
The historical records of the Bible alone, right? But even, and that's the idea, essentially the way a lot of the time we read the Bible today is with the mindset of this was written for me.
Right.
But in reality, and that's why like biblical literacy, as they call it, is so important, is because this wasn't written for us today. Yes, it has relevancy for what we go through today, and it speaks on to the human experience, but it was written to a different people at a different time. And so when you're talking about like these scholars talking about it, they're reading the context of like, what is this placed in? Because there's a lot, like, if I think Dax and I were talking about this, like you Genesis. Can have a verse for any to excuse anything you want to do on this world.
Oh yeah,
right?
Over the course of the Bible.
Because you can take anything out of context and make it adapted to whatever you want to do, and it's from the Bible, right?
There's a funny thing in Barry. Do you remember that?
No.
When Barry's trying to justify, he's become Christian.
Okay.
Christian.
Yeah.
And he's trying to justify killing a person, and he like searches pastor podcasts, and he finds the one where it's Bill Burr saying how, hey, I used to be an enforcer in hockey, and I killed a guy because the Lord says, and then he's like, that's the one.
Yeah.
And that's what he talks about, right? Like the out of context literacy. But to get things on track, sorry to interject.
Yeah.
No worries.
Beelining.
How you took courses?
Yes. So
how you
decided.
So
my bad.
No. It's
so
all
much
good.
to talk about.
Honestly, I prefer it this way. It's good to thank you for putting us back on.
We'll get back into it.
I
just want to hear why, and then let's get into it.
Okay. So basically, I just kept taking courses. Like, you know what, like, I might as well finish here, and I kept liking it to social work. Like, I get to at least incorporate my faith into whatever work I do. And so I was like, okay, let's just go gung-ho, finish all the courses, graduated with my Bachelor of Arts, major in Biblical Studies and Pastoral Leadership.
That's cool.
Yeah. And
That's so cool.
my story's kind of odd because if you talk to any other pastor, a lot of them will usually say they had like a clear call of like, you're going down this road. If I'm speaking honestly, I don't think I've ever had that, but like just a blatant like, this is you. I've had people speak into that, and perhaps that could be something like that, but I think it was more so like God just kept opening doors and opportunities, and now I'm here working at a church. And so that's how I finished with that, and to kind of go into just to be like a licensed pastor. So I'm in like the denomination of like, it's called Alliance. It's kind of like the in-between of like super liberal and super conservative. Just like a nice balance. And you just get, I think it's just a license, and then you would go to seminary later on after you get the licensing. And seminary, I'd assume like for a priesthood, it's a lot different than like pastoral. You could do that. A lot of people do, because there's a lot of collaboration between Catholicism and Protestant. But if you were to go to seminary, it's kind of like taking your master's.
Okay.
Right? And then you would have like a reverend. I think you'd become a reverend at that point. Then you can go on to get your PhD, become a doctor. So,
one of our the pastor we grew up with, he's a PhD now.
He's a PhD.
Really?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
And a lot of the pastors at the church.
It's interesting. It's just it's like literally a world. I grew up in the whole church system, like Catholic church, but I literally just kind of don't really know anything outside of like, I know kind of you go through the seminary and all that. I always pictured the seminary because they always would try and poach us all, right?
We went. we did field trips there. Don't you remember? In like grade 10.
Monastery?
Minister Gosling took us on a monastery trip, and
Mission?
We watched, in Mission.
I love that place.
We like watched them like sing their thing.
Did I go the whole class?
Our whole class, man. Because
this shows you how like lucid I was.
Remember Father James? Father James, that one cool priest that would like play ball with us, that younger one. he would like sometimes when he would do, because we would have mandatory monthly masses.
Yeah.
And he would come in, and when it was his turn to preach,
Yeah.
he would like come at lunchtime and like play ball with all of us. Do you remember him?
I don't remember any of this.
Okay.
Yeah, but see, like, I was so out of it. I literally just liked playing sports, girls, and video games.
Yeah.
And quite frankly, it's not much different now. I have more responsibilities, but like,
The girls just turned into
girls has been in my baby and my baby mama, but girls.
Anyway,
obviously.
So that's kind of how I ended up here. My fiance, she's heavily involved in the church. She's one of the family ministries like coordinators, associates at the church we work at. So
Very cool. I think this is a big thing for like it accessibility into the church, meeting someone like you who actually is a person, because with respect to all the other people like that, if it's their path, that's amazing and they knew it their whole life, that's awesome. But it does give from like someone that's not on that path, you're kind of like, well, of course you did that, like, but you don't understand.
Right.
So yeah.
And it's easy to get into. I know what you're talking about. I know exactly.
Honestly, like before you got here, we played 2 games of FIFA, and I got his blood pressure up pretty high. Like, you wouldn't be able to tell. I mean, within reason, but you wouldn't, if you just watch us there, you'd be like, that guy's not a pastor. But Peter, because again, this is where I'm going to tie in, and I said I didn't check, and I come all full circle. Obviously, we're still hanging out. I'd like to think I'm less of a bad influence now.
Debatable, but okay.
But
I'll speak on that after.
we talked about, like, I've told you this, and I think most of our friends do now. I don't know if like the majority of them do, but I've not been like not vocal about it. But my pursuit in Christianity, right? I would probably liken where I'm at right now, where Daniel was right at the beginning, where I know I want to pursue this, and I know this is the calling. I'm kind of lost in the community aspect right now, but it was really nice to talk to him and get different perspectives. Because when I jumped back in, like fully blind. And remember, I would come back to you and I'd tell you like the stuff that I would learn, and be like, "Hey man, like I talked to this guy, and he put a really cool spin on what I used to think Christianity was, like narrowed in this box, but it's a lot more open than people think it is in terms of its views. There's really one central view, to be honest with you. It's the Lord Jesus. Like, that's really the main central view, and everything else revolves around that. But
what do you mean, as in like Jesus is Son of God? Is that what you mean
Jesus,
by it's around
Jesus is King, Jesus is Lord, right?
Okay, yeah.
Everything else falls in line. And like, I was having a conversation with a pastor that he works really closely with, and I think I talked to you about it. And it was, the conversation is a huge topic right now, probably super appropriate because June is Pride Month, right? And one of the things he talked about was, like, there's always been this conversation of Christianity's acceptance of like LGBTQ+, right? That's a volatile relationship, historically speaking, and it still really is, right? He sat down and was like, technically speaking, the church is supposed to be the most welcoming place anybody could go. So he doesn't understand the divide of a person from that denomination to not be able to come to church and be welcomed, and be welcomed being LGBTQ+.
Right.
It's like, technically we're supposed to be love, right? Like, we're supposed to be love, not against love.
Well, okay, this is a thing I've always felt with religion, and this is just the broad sense of it all, is the underlying of it is God. And God is good, and that's like literally across all of every single religion, the term God is good is there, right? And I feel like from there, as soon as you step out of that baseline, you're dealing with people and their opinions and interpretations of things. So that always kind of like muddies the water. And like, to the point of what you're talking about, that to me makes sense, is like, why would, if you accept all, then you're like, but we don't accept you. You're like, but that kind of undermines your whole like process. And so when I hear you say stuff like that, it just to me more comes to like, it's the folly of man that's put it into that position, as opposed to anything to do with God, or if that makes sense. Yeah.
Well, I think it's especially in today's like climate, social climate in general, is there is no room to be hospitable or cordial simultaneously having differing opinions.
Mm-hmm.
So nowadays it's hard to sit in a room where if you and I don't agree on something, like whatever you say doesn't matter to me.
Yeah.
Right? And so if you come in that on both sides with that perspective, you're never gonna, right?
Yeah.
That's how we.
I feel like that's the internet, like social media is
Yeah.
really just really done that.
Yeah.
It's really done
Super
that.
polarized, right? Look at the political spectrum right now.
Yeah.
It's far left, far right. They're at least before maybe you could have a conversation and have like meet in the middle at some point. But yeah, you could talk about that in politics, right? Like if I am predominantly like conservative person, but I don't agree with this certain thing, but you agree with that thing, and everything else we actually agree on, but it's this one thing that we don't agree on, and we hate each other, like.
Well, that's what I found. Like I had to get rid of all my social medias, everything, because I was just so linked into like bullshit. To be quite honest with you, just so much like. It was my own fault, but I'll blame the algorithms too. It was kind of that thing of like what you look at, it propels and blah blah blah. We all know the story. But one thing that I found really funny was whenever you'd find one thing, like to your point of you'd latch onto and you'd be like, I'm staunchly believe this, and then you'd find someone else though that believed that exact same thing as you, and then you'd sit there and you'd talk with them. And you're like, okay, well if you believe this and I believe this, what do you think of this? And then they, to me, seemed crazy. I'm like, oh, you think that?
Yeah.
And I feel like that's where everyone's at, where it's like, if you believe one thing with someone, and you sit down with them, you're eventually going to be like, no, they're nuts. And then they're going to be like, you're fucking nuts. So, excuse my language.
Yeah, man. It's wild. It's tough. It's tough to have like an open conversation.
So, with being a pastor, like I get what you were saying about you like shepherd people. You're kind of like a guide to God, or like around how one would interpret God. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I suppose so.
So what does it look like? Do you like have people just like kind of just like come up and start talking to you, or are you more teaching a class? Is it a little both?
I think it really depends on like where your giftings are.
Okay.
So the pastor he was talking about, his gifting is in teaching. He was my history teacher at college.
Okay.
But this man reads novel. That he was a librarian. He was trying to study to be a librarian, so he's a bookworm, and so his gift of painting a picture with his words is incredible.
Right.
And so he's a teacher. But some people were called to preach. So like you're in front of the church and you're speaking on the Sunday, whatever they may be. So it really depends. Some pastors do it all, right?
Okay.
Like in that scope, there's also like the pastoral care aspect, which is why I really enjoy it, is
Okay.
where you walk in like the highs of highs with people, but like the lowest of the lows, right? And you're just there. You're a living embodiment of like a reflection of what like how Christ would see you.
So sorry, that's where you want to go, or that's just part of where you want to go?
Yeah, that's just part. Like it's kind of in the sphere of pastoral ministry. At some point, you're gonna do most of those.
Okay.
things.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
And admin stuff.
What
at
did
church.
it do with your friends? You know, obviously we talked about like you coming up from North Vancouver. We're from North Vancouver. Historically speaking, even a coworker of mine knows who you are.
Yeah.
North Vancouver is just a small world.
Yeah.
And when a small world happens, we all tend to be friends with the same people for our entire life. Like his friends, he's been friends with for his entire life.
Yeah.
My friends have been friends with my entire life. I've been friends with you for over 20 years. Call you my cousin.
It's even hilarious to think of like you and I have been friends like not literally our entire lives, but we've known each other since grade 8.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
feels
so
right.
Yeah.
what did that do initially with your friend group? That obviously, because considering the friend group that you had, I'd assume, were different from the ones you've cultivated now in the ministry and the church. So what did that do with your friends, and how did you sort of come to terms with, like, these are good people, but they might not be good for me?
That's good. No, that's really good.
Tough,
Yeah, I think like at the beginning, it was tough. because I had a lot of Dereks in my life, and for you, I had a lot of Daxes in my life from high school. You're just going through the trenches of growing into manhood, and to kind of see, if you were to see that cut off, is pretty scary, right? And so, yeah, once I started taking my faith and just everything in general a little more seriously, I realized that a lot of the commonalities I had with like these friends that I was always around was always based around something, whether that be drinking, smoking weed, sports. Like that was our anchor, right? And so in this case, like the party aspect was like a big kind of tying factor for a lot of my friendships. And once I cut that off, we didn't really have much in common at that point. We're not talking about things like this. You're not really interested in what I'm really learning, and life gets busy. And so I think right out the gates, I kind of like ghosted. I became like a ghost.
I mean, I feel like I don't know, you kind of have to, especially if your friends are party friends.
Yeah.
Because like I don't know, I can relate. I feel like it's just a natural thing of like, as you grow. I was talking to one of my clients about this today, is like I had someone over COVID come up to me, and I hadn't seen them in quite a while, and they like were like, "You changed, man. What happened?" And I was like thinking the whole, like, as they said it, I was like, why the hell would I be the same? Like that would be sad, you know, if someone came back and was like, "You're the same as you were 10 years ago." I'd be like, damn. Like,
yeah, no,
you know,
sure, man.
Like maybe you can say it in a nice way, like, "Oh, you haven't changed." Maybe they're referring to you're nice or something. But if they like meet it in the way of like, "You're the exact same," you're like, I don't think that's a compliment. But your thing is, if you are friends with someone and like you said, like, I don't know, you do some stuff, but you grow apart, that's one thing. But if you're actually partying with people and that's your common thing, then it basically becomes, you're like, well, unless you're going to go get hammered, you literally have no reason to be around that person. Yeah,
for sure, man. And I think also, just in all honesty, like there was a fear of like I'm in nowadays, like you say you're a Christian, and there's a bit of like okay,
absolutely,
right? And so there was a fear when I told people I was like going to church more. Like there was some reactions were like, "Nice, man," right?
Yeah.
I've had other friends who, like, I still talk to this day. Like, we see each other and we'll bike and whatnot. But like when I told them that, it's just like, like what? Like scoffing. But then there are some who would be like, "Hey, like, I respect your decision," and they're not Christian at all, right? And so there was a diversity of reactions to the whole thing. But at that point in my life, I knew, like, okay, I have to, for a time, this has to cut off. But the prayer in my heart, like that longing, was always like, God, like, give me an opportunity to, like, because these guys are a part of my life, like, open some way of like me reconnecting when I'm like ready. Like when I'm more mature in my faith and me as a man, that way I can be around stuff, and it's just, how can you like, right? And so at the beginning it was tough. It was a lot of, I'd say definitely a lot of grieving of relationships that, like, best friends at the time, right? Like do or dies, were not speaking anymore, right? Just because of different, like the way I went, the way he went.
That's a very real thing. Like when I say that, I'm not kidding. The death of friends, but obviously not the literal death.
No.
But like the death of a friendship,
of a relationship, right?
And
there is like a grieving process to that. It's not just like a death of an actual death of someone, but like a relationship or whatever. And so there was a lot of processing in that. And then, as I kind of became more mature and a little more grounded and rooted, doors open, and this basketball league is that. So to go full circle, like these boys are the guys that I kind of like was gone, and then now I can reconnect with them. We have like much different conversations that are actually like life-giving, and I get to know, like, how is your heart? Like, how are you doing as a person? I don't, like, work is good, like playing sports is good, but I want to know you. Like, how are you really doing?
Oh, dude, yeah, that I wonder sometimes if, you know, the whole idea of like people are sheep and they like wander through life kind of like droning or zombies. I do believe that's true. When I say people are sheep, I'm not like, oh, the people are sheep, they're lining up for the Apple product. Not like that. I mean it more in the sense of like, I think people like drone on and just
Yeah.
go through like
Coast.
I think I might have said this, but I'm just gonna say it again. I go to the McDonald's at Westview every morning for my coffee, okay? And every time I go there, there's the women there and they all know me, and I just say, hey, how you doing? And they know I have a kid, and it's like very basic, right? But then I saw the woman at McDonald's at the Safeway, so like in the same big parking lot, and I went, oh, hey. She went, hey. And then she was like, you're one of the first people to actually recognize me outside of McDonald's, even though I'm like across the street from it.
Yeah.
And it made me realize, I'm like, I think a lot of people, this is like, pretend you're the McDonald's person, that people come up, they go, I'll have a Big Mac and cheeseburger, that's $8.95, okay, thank you, have a good day.
Yeah.
And at no point, like, or maybe very little, once a day, they actually look someone in the eyes.
Yeah.
So I can understand how cool it is if you meet people and you're like, yo, I connect with these people, and you go, how was your day? And they're like, oh, I had a rough day, or whatever, and you're like, whoa.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Oh, so do you really want to know what I'm talking
Yeah,
about? You know what I mean?
yeah.
Like, you're gonna ask me like, why did you have a rough day? Right?
Yeah.
Like,
I've told Derek, I swear, well, I actually know I've talked to Derek about this. But for a little bit of time, remember when I told you that I wanted to stop responding to, well, how's it going?
Mhm.
Because most of the time when people go, hello, hey, how's it going? People don't really want to know how it's going. They want to hear you say,
Good.
it's good.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
It's really tough to not respond to it because it's rude. But there are days where I'll have a really bad day and someone will go, hey, how's it going? And I want to say like, hey man, I'm just having a terrible day. Like I'm super stressed right now. My mind is going like a mile a minute. But nobody actually wants, the most people that actually ask you that don't really want to know how your day is going, unfortunately.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, that's like a big part of this podcast is both Dax and I have this belief that like people want to talk about themselves all the time, not even narcissistically. Like they do, like you have a story you want to tell, but you don't get a chance to sit down and tell your story. And it's been very cool just to sit down with people and talk. And even like me and Neve do a podcast, and it's not about the views. It's not about who's listening. Like, it's cool if people are listening because it puts a lot more worth into what we're doing. But, like, that's not what it's about. If we leave here and at the end of this whole thing, we're like, yo, 4 people listened to it and 3 of them were Derek playing it on all his different apps to get likes. Who gives a F? It's been a very enjoyable time. And yeah, it is... I don't know. I just think that that's a sad part of the world we're in today, is where that's not a thing that happens as often anymore. Yeah.
Do you think from your like moving forward in that path, do you think that you'll ever go back to like some of your friends that you cut off and maybe see like where that relationship is? Because for me, for example, I've told the people that I actually like really, again, I don't know what I mean, but like the people that I care about their opinion, like I've told them, and they reacted exactly how I expected them to react, right? Like everything's exactly the same, right?
Yeah.
Do you ever find like, do you ever mourn some of those that you maybe want to explore again down the line, or figure out like how to maybe reconnect?
Yeah, I think definitely. Like, if I were to see them, or if I were to get a call, like I would talk to them just to see how everything's going. It wouldn't necessarily be like the same, because I don't think it could be the same. Perhaps, but those are few and far between. Like,
so have you had anyone, like, sorry to cut you off, that has that you've had a bad breakup with, like where I don't want to just for due to lack of a better word,
right?
Like, something where you're like it's not like, oh yo, I'm more into my faith and becoming a pastor. They're kind of like, what, like that? Anything like that negative?
So I got 2 examples. One on a little more chill side, and the other where it's kind of like up in the air and really hurt. But the first one is just 2 different paths. The other guy is just doing his own thing, business, still living in like the life we were living a bit. Not as to the extent, but like still enjoys that stuff. He grew up in the church, mind you, so he respects what I'm doing.
Like, he gets what's going on.
He gets what's going on, but like because of that, we're not as tight as we once were. And it sucks. right? Like this guy we talked for hours. He knows everything about you and everything about him. And then for him, like there would be times where he was going through it, and the only person he didn't want to talk to was me, because it felt like I don't know, he didn't want to dampen my faith at the time, or like I would say something, I don't know, but at the time I was just starting out. But like hearing that through someone else, that like I'm the only person he can't talk to right now because it's going to be like that hurts.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right?
That's how I felt.
Yeah. And so, yeah, you kind of, and if I were to see him and talk to him, like I'd love to, right? But there is an expectation with, like, we're going to be besties again, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Do you think he'd now be more open to talking to you, like as you've gotten older? Or is this
yeah,
more recent?
we've like talked like in pockets, like, because when I think I started this journey 6 or 7 years ago, and before that we were like two peas in a pod, and then for the last 6 or 7 years I've probably talked to him twice.
How is he doing now? Like,
I think he's doing really well. Yeah.
Because I remember the last time, if I'm thinking of the same person,
Yeah.
he had a couple of very high speeding tickets in different provinces.
Yeah. It sounds like
partying in Miami.
he's doing
nice.
still like doing cool stuff, but his business has been doing really well. He's got like a beverage business out in Alberta.
Oh, crazy.
Yeah, and so they live out there, and
You still have the 2 adjacent houses with everyone living in there?
I think so.
Okay.
But not everyone. I think his family's just there.
Okay.
Yeah, he might have moved out with his girlfriend.
It's interesting. I'm just trying to think of like if Dax had presented his like foray, or I don't know if that's the right word, but like his return to faith. If I was 21, how I would have reacted. I don't think I would never have been negative, because I've never looked at, like, I've been like strongly opposed to religion in the sense of I don't believe it,
Right.
but I've never been strongly opposed to religion and like, why would someone else think that? I've just been like, no, I don't think that, but I've never been like on the side of like, what? Why would you?
Right.
But I feel like if it was 7 years ago, like sometimes people, when you're younger, you just get really volatile about that stuff.
Yeah, for sure, man. And 21, dude, that's like at the peak of like you can finally go party in the States, and like the whole world's at your fingers, and all of a sudden your best friend's telling you don't want to do anything anymore together.